Fun Thing, a Smart Meetings podcast that provides you with a shortcut to the top of the events world by asking successful people what made the difference in their careers and lives. I'm JT Long. I am Vice President and Content Director of Smart Meetings, and this conversation could be start of something completely different in your life because I am joined here by Falon Veit. She is the founder and CEO of EES Global Events and a former Smart Meetings and Meeting Professional of the Year. She is a global event guru. Falon, welcome.
Thank you, JT. It's so great to be here.
Oh, so wonderful to connect. Our company was founded by an amazing woman, Marin Bright. She just truly believed that in an industry where it is more than 75% women, and yet still so many men in top roles at hotels and other event agencies, that it's so important to give a platform to future leaders and to current leaders by telling their fabulous stories, and then we inspire more of it. So we're super excited we're here. I first want to just ask you, what is a global event guru? And did you go around the world telling people where to sit when you were a little girl?
I should have. I technically started in events when I was 17, so I guess kind of a little girl. I'm a global event guru. My whole team is as well. We have been traveling the world since inception of EES Agency back in 2012. I am actually on year 26 of being in a live event career. A couple more countries and a few more grays under my belt, if you will. But no, to kind of kick off a little bit what you were saying about what I was doing when I was younger, it's interesting. I never knew that events was a thing. You know, I'm an 80s baby. And when I was a little girl, I thought I wanted to be a NASCAR driver. No joke. I raced go-karts as a child. And then when I got a little bit older, I was like, I'm going to do something responsible and, good for greater good of mankind. And I want to be a pediatrician. I went to college, immediately got out of pre-med and went straight into marketing, communications, public relations, and international business. And I fell backwards into this career and I never looked back. And it's the most amazing thing I've ever done. I'm 44 years old now. I think I could say that out loud. And, I talk to new people all the time and they're just like, you have so much energy about what you do, just like the energy you have right now, JT. It feels so good to know that I've been doing something for a quarter of a century and still love doing it every single day.
We are so, so lucky. The comment you made about falling into it is so common, right? This is an industry where, when there's career day at school, so many people don't even know that it's a choice, but they maybe started in restaurants or front desk. And then they said, wow, this is such a diverse industry. I also see that you are a professor. So talk about, is the next generation getting a little bit more intentional about choosing this as a career, or what can we do to help them see it as an option?
Great question. And I am in the thick of this right now. So funny. So I taught at Lipscomb University a senior event management class, and I actually found some employees out of there, which was great. My office right now is headquartered in Nashville, Tennessee, but we just opened a second office in Southern Florida in the Miami market. And we are tied really tightly to the FIU, Florida International University down there. And they are one of the top hospitality schools in the country, just pushing it out. So yes, now, thank goodness, you can actually you can get a master's in this, go to school and actually learn this from the ground up, which is amazing. And we're actually putting some of our team members through their master's program right now, just to make sure that they've got not only the event know-how, which they already have, but the business know-how behind the events, to the strategic side forward as well. So yes, finally, the country figured out that you need to be trained in this too, instead of just thrown into the deep end of the pool. So it's great.
It is so important, because that's how we counter that whole, you're a party planner argument, right? And again, our families don't even know what we do, but our executives need to know and our policymakers need to know, because we are such an important economic force, social force, scientific force, and yet we don't get the support that we need, right? I'm a little bit older than you, and I went to journalism school a long time ago, and the things that I learned about inverted pyramid style and using a proportion wheel, and none of that counts anymore. But of course, by doing it for 30 years, I have learned a lot and constantly iterating. What is it that they're teaching in school right now? Is it the storytelling that you do? Is it some of those more advanced things that meeting planners need right now?
Yeah, the class that I led, I took it from like a mid-level manager level, right? Like I did not want to go in and teach a class, mainly because they were seniors in college, but I didn't want to teach an entry-level event class. I wanted to teach them things like when your client is yelling yelling and screaming in the corner of the ballroom and you don't know why and you have to go over there and talk to them and calm them down. Like, how do you handle that, right? Or when a vendor doesn't show up and you can't get them on the phone, like things like that. We're actually dealing with the fires that we have because, you can teach anyone for the most part, not to say that we're not smart people that are in the events industry, but you can teach people how to, write a BEO, read a BEO, negotiate a hotel contract, load a bus for the most part, right? It's this, what I call the squishy factor of like dealing with people in the industry and usually clients and sometimes team members and just making sure that they can handle what is going on. And so that's the way I led my curriculum. FIU was doing it completely differently and doing it more whole scoping, but I just thought that was the most important to teach those. It's like the managerial skills, right? Like when you get to a director in my company, you start managing people and having that training and knowing how to deal with people on a day in and day out basis, not only to grow their careers, but also to set them up for success in sticky situations. So I think that's really important. And, I've said this for years, as event planners and meeting planners, we are personal concierge. We are therapists. We run all the errands. Oh, and by the way, then we plan the meeting or the event and the conference and the travel and all that stuff too. So having that, being able to create that psychological safety for our clients, our team members is probably one of the most important things.
It is. And you are right that it has to be both. First, you have to make sure that your team feels that they're supported and that they can go out there and sometimes make mistakes, right? Because it's a live event, things happen. And I love the idea that you are helping people not just to make their own mistakes and learn from it, but telling your authentic stories, right? And we believe in that. We have a series of case studies that we do and kind of that, this is when it was rained out and this is what we did. Or I just did a story about a bartender that pulled the plug in the midst of the major sponsor making their speech on stage and the entire ballroom went black and you just had one disco ball glinting at the top of the room, right? And it happens and you have to be able to recover like that.
Yep. It's going to happen. I mean, we're in the people business any way you look at it and humans are human and we make mistakes and that's okay. If we were perfect, I tell my team all the time, I said, if our clients were perfect, they wouldn't need us, right? Like we wouldn't have a job because they would have already figured this out and done it better than us a long time ago. So try to like lean into and embrace the chaos that is event and meeting planning at the same time. So I am with you on that 100%.
So in a way, yes, you could teach technically anyone how to do this, but they also have to just have that spark. Some might say a disease, like this addiction to the stress and then the joy and the whole roller coaster that is putting on an event.
Yes, 100%. My COO has been in the event industry for, I think, 38 years. I'm at 26 years in the event industry. And we both look at each other sometimes. We finish each other's sentences and he and I together are the perfect brain, right? And we look at each other sometimes and he's like, we're crazy. I'm like, I know. We bought into this level of crazy and not only running an event company, which is crazier, but just being event planners at a very young age. But, I don't know what I would do without the roller coaster of the ups and downs, because I think adaptability is, you kind of just roll with the punches. And I think that's a great mindset and skill set to have in life in general. And I think it's something that being in events from a very, very, very young age, I learned that. And so I love it when I can get younger people in on the team as well and kind of throw them in and protect them, but throw them in a little bit so they can kind of see what that is, because it is a roller coaster, what you said, exactly, like the ups and downs. It's a lot.
Yeah. You either love it or you run fast.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
The other thing that we joke about is that we're sometimes our own worst PR people, right? So we complain about the early flights and the long hours and the not being able to eat and the work-life balance. And yet we love our job. So why don't we talk about the things we love so that more people will want to do it?
Right. Absolutely. No, that's a great point. We really do. I think that, it's interesting being in this industry and being the only industry I've ever really been in. I mean, corporate meetings, right? I mean, I'm a meeting planner by trade. I just happen to run a company now, right? That's kind of how I look at it. I think there's a flip. I remember when I was young and in my 20s, and it was very much telling that story. Like, I haven't slept in 3 days. I think I washed my hair on Tuesday. I haven't bought clothes or gone out with friends in a month or whatever it was. Or I have 75,000 airline miles I just racked up in the past 30 days or whatever it was. But, I think there's a flip. And my flip was like around the time I was like 28 years old. And I started doing more than just the event logistics and started focusing on like the business strategy and really thinking through what me as 20-something-year-old Falon was bringing to the table for these massive global corporations all over the world. And because you don't think that when you're in the weeds and you haven't slept and you haven't shopped and you have no friends anymore, like you don't think of all that stuff, right? And so when it flipped for me, it was like this light bulb went off. And that's when also when I started around the time I started my own company a couple years later. And the way that I started the agency was like with that strategic mindset at heart, always, because that's what we're doing at the end of the day. I mean, having flawless event logistics is one thing. I know that's the foundation of what great meeting and event planning is. But if you have to create that human connection, because that's what makes the logistics remarkable, right? It takes it to that next level. So I was really happy when that flip happened because it opened up a whole new world for me with starting a business and then working on a strategy, going to Vanderbilt, getting my MBA, and then just building a team of women and men. We did start hiring men in 2021. We
love our men. We do. Yes.
We got 4 of them now and they're killer. They're rock stars. I love these guys. It's just kind of funny to say that. I always love saying that on women-led podcasts. But putting that strategy on the forefront and making sure that not just me and my C-suite, who are making the business decisions, but the people, the boots on the ground, my men and women who are working every day and traveling 250 days out of the year, that it's like, guys, you might have just flawlessly executed this meeting, but you also sent 250 salespeople off to go make $1 billion this year. Like, that's awesome. And not many people can just say that, so that's how, when you were talking about the positive shift, it's like, why do we say all this negative stuff? I think in most careers, there's a shift at some point.
And I think you make a very good point. There is the logistics of it. There is the contracts, the BEOs, all of that. And then there's that human side. And humans need, what are they? They need purpose. They need meaning. They need something that you do really well, which is storytelling, right? That emotional journey that we take them on. How can you help people fulfill on those levels?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have various roles on my team that actually hone in on this at the internal level first, and then move it to the CX level, the client experience, and then the AX, the attendee experience. So I just created a role a little over a year ago, director of experience. And then we have our creative team and then our marketing team that kind of combine in this, and they sit around and dream things up, and it's amazing. The director of experience rolls out like the standard operating procedures. So it's consistent across the entire company, from an internal, how we treat our internal team as well as our external clients. And then the creative and marketing teams literally just bring things to life. The cool part about it that I personally love, and like sometimes when I step in and actually work with some of our top clients, is I get to sit in this space where I've got 4 to 6 people on my team and we all have our own lane in a beautiful way. We have the experience lane, we have the production lane, we have the marketing lane, we have the general creative lane, and then I usually sit in the strategy seat for some of those meetings. And it is so neat to sit in those, and we're all taking notes and we're asking our questions that we normally ask, or new questions or whatever it is. And we get together for a brief after that. In a good way, it's like we just sat in 6 different meetings because our brains are operating differently. So I think to answer your question, the depth of know-how that we have on this team and the backgrounds that my team members have really create like a whole circle, like a complete pie when it comes to actually creating the experience. Because, experiential event, relatively a new term, at least in Nashville, has been around for probably 3 to 4 years. Now we travel the world and we see it and do it in other places, but like trying to even educate our clients and people, not our team, but other people in the community here, what it is. People just think it's like, oh, you're going to have color coordinated signage in your ballroom or venue that matches your company logo. I'm like, no. Like, they always think it's just visual, right? And then it ties back to the brand. I'm like, no, this is when someone walks to a reg desk, you're going to know their name. You're going to make sure they have their favorite type of water, which that is a thing now in their hotel room. Like little things like that, all the way to the way that they are announced on stage and the song they rock out to the aromatics that are in the space, to the touch and feel of the invitations, all this stuff. I don't have to tell you, but all those kind of things, like that whole immersive feel is really what the 6 different brains on my team that sit these meetings come up with in different ways. And then it always goes back. It's like the creative goes back to strategy, and then it just kind of does the circle. And it's a beautiful process. It is absolutely amazing. And it's been working for us for a while now. So,
and the people that you're designing this for are at a point right now where, you know what? A lot of them are in some pain. They're lonely. They are scared. They're rattled because things change so quickly. So how do you help the attendee feel that they can still be surprised and delighted, but not shocked and awed, right?
Yes, I think something that I've been rolling out to my team for like the past 6 months, we have a theme for the year, and it is centered around psychological safety. And I don't know if you've heard that phrase. There's a HBR article that I love and made my management team read. But this is something that I needed to make sure that we were doing internally first, and we are. But then that pushes out to the clients, which then goes to the attendees, right? Because maybe call me jaded. Maybe it's me. I don't know. But I don't really care if there's a big name music act on stage, maybe because I'm from Nashville and we know everybody, or, some of those like what I would call like Instagram moments don't really mean anything to most people in the business world, right? And so for the way that we try to transfer it to the AX, the attendee experience side, is literally like through some of those very little touches, right? So they are feeling seen and heard. It could be as simple as when you're designing a meeting agenda and you have some issue in your company that has been kind of bubbling up and around for a while, and you need to get your director level team together. However, you haven't been able to do that for whatever reason. It's like, okay, don't just put them in a breakout and let them sit there and hash it out. Bring in a facilitator. Make sure that they have lunch. Like little things like that where it's like, okay, these 10 people in this room, I'm going to make sure they're actually heard and that it matters. And then working with the client to have an engagement plan after that meeting, right? Because a lot of times we get together at conferences and meetings or special events, and you want to have continuous engagement to push things forward, but you can't. So the making people around, from EX to CX to AX make them be felt, seen, and heard, even at the small level, in my opinion, does a lot more than spending $2.5 million on somebody coming in to sing on stage, right? Like they're like, wow, that's a wow, but they can't take that emotion and carry that forward and to know, oh, wow, my company cares about me, or, oh, wow, my team is supporting me, or, oh, wow, my boss heard me because I've been complaining about this problem for 6 months and now I'm sitting in this room and we're talking about it. And then guess what? I'm going to go home next week and we're going to have a follow-up newsletter, whatever. I'm using random words, but follow-up something about it, right? And pushing it forward. So it's just really small ways, because as you know, in this industry, our budgets are being shrunk on like all sides. We're like getting into this little box of a budget now, and just making sure that the engagement and the communication is happening between the annual conferences, between the quarterly meetings, between the monthly board director meetings, whatever it is a big part of that psychological safety, and actually the execution of the action that is happening in the meeting, making sure that it's executed out.
And that's real, and that impacts lives, right? And it doesn't have to cost more, because one of the things we always talk about is, if your budget stays the same year over year and inflation goes up, especially on the prices of beef and getting people there, then you're actually shrinking your budget, right?
You are. And people don't understand that, and, it's really hard. And you understand this in your career. It's like, talking to people on the phone and they're like, well, we did this last year and I need to make it better this year. And I'm like, well, I need at least 15% more. They're like, well, we don't, I'm like, okay. And honestly, the beautiful thing about coming out of COVID was amazing for us, and sure for everybody else. In Nashville, it was just like, it's like someone turned the water faucet on.
Full blast.
January 1st, 2021. And it was like, here we go. And here we went. Our revenue quadrupled in like 24 hours, it felt like. And so it was amazing. But the beautiful thing about like having to think about money in a different way through that time period, which is translated to now, is coming up with like things I was just saying. Like training my team and bringing them up in this experiential side of the market we're doing it differently. This isn't, like I said, the Instagram moments. These are the things that don't cost a lot of money that just make somebody feel like somebody else cares about them. Because it's amazing what will happen when, we do a lot of internal meetings like sales kickoffs and trainings and education sessions for global corporations. And you're sitting in the room, and sometimes a client, like I said, brings in an act or somebody, talk, keynote, whatever. And sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not. But like when we actually do, we asked to do these like smallest little touches with them just to make them feel seen and heard, from the way that they're communicated to with, email blasts to the registration process. My gosh, is the most important thing ever for a meeting. And making sure that like they don't feel hectic and harassed like throughout the process is one thing. But those people that leave those meetings where they had the small touches go out and conquer in a much greater way than the people that did it, right? And so we learned a lot, and then just pushing that forward in that way still. Yes.
So smart. So smart. Well, I love what you've done to kind of bring your attendees, your customers, and your team together. Talk to me about what is the one thing, because that's the name of this podcast, what is the one thing that our community can learn from you that they could apply to improve their careers and lives?
Yeah, I thought a lot about this and I had like 17 things. If I wrote them all down, it's like, okay, I'm just going to pick this on the fly based on what we're talking about. But honestly, they were very well thought through. I would say, and this ties definitely into the experiential side of having that type of agency, but at the end of the day, business only moves at the speed of human connection. And I think we have to remember that, right? So just like what we've been talking about, JT, it's like if people don't believe it, feel it, hear it, see it in that way, then the strategy that you're putting into that, personally, professionally, from a company, from your job as a doctor to your job as an event planner, the strategy doesn't matter, right? And so taking a step back, which is what we've been doing since COVID now, and just really looking at the nuts and bolts of who we're working with and why they're doing business the way they are and what problems they have coming down the pipeline and how we can solve that with them from an event strategy standpoint, and then making sure that people feel it is a game changer. And I think that applies to, I know we're smart meetings, we're all event folks in some way, shape, or form, but I think it applies to anybody, like business moving at the speed of human connection is a real thing. That's it. And if people aren't connecting, then guess what? It's not moving. So I hope that's helpful.
And connecting in a real way, right? So keeping that why at the very center and being honest and transparent. And that's how you move all of us ahead.
I know we've all sat in these meetings before, where not meetings that we produce, of course, but obviously not, but just any meetings, right? You're sitting in a meeting and someone's out there with a clicker and they're running through these stats on this PowerPoint deck. And it's just, you're being talked at, not to, not with, right? And you're just like, everybody's looking at their watch. Nobody's paying attention. They're on their phones now, which is a thing. Although we do have clients that don't allow internet in their ballroom, which I think is genius.
Wow. How they don't get rebellion. People don't storm the stage.
No, we're like, this is not happening. I'm like, you walk into there, like you're not going to get on your email. But were you being talked at? You're just being talked in a way that you're just being informed and there's no feedback. The slides are too cumbersome. The lighting is like whatever it is. The chair is uncomfortable, all that kind of stuff, right? Like you have to, if you're going to say something where you are changing the trajectory of your business, or you're asking your salespeople to double their quotas, or you are changing your executive committee or whatever it is, like you've got to make the space feel comfortable, right? You've got to talk to these people, not just from the stage, but like go out into the audience, talk to them at the coffee break, be strategic of the way you're sitting people at tables at dinner at night, or who's riding on what bus, right? Like there's so many ways that it's just not a presentation, right? You're just sitting, you're just looking at this information and it's just not hitting home. They're like, well, we'll send the deck out later. I'm like, nobody's going to open that deck and read it. It's just not going to happen. And even if they do, they're not going to get it then because they didn't get it in person, right? So that connection of just like taking that extra step, and I know it's hard, but trying to be like fully present when you're on site at a meeting as a leader. Note to my clients, please do that. Put your family to the side for a minute, put all the beef you might have with your team members aside for the minute. But when you're on site, like connect with the people there in person, because that's where the stuff moves. That's where the business happens for sure.
We know that in real life. So I think that if you are just giving people a passive presentation, you may as well do it in a virtual session, right? Because there's no in and out. We do what we call a sunrise rave to start off our events. And so we bring in a DJ and we do square dancing. And our president, Luc Trousseau, he's right there dancing with everyone else, right? Yes. And that gets everyone to feel like, oh, it's okay. And then as soon as they move, it hits their endorphins and they're awake and they're engaged and they've done all this together. So when they sit down for their one-on-one meetings, they've experienced something together that they feel part of.
Yeah, if you can figure out a way from a time and budget standpoint to have your attendees experience something together for the first time as a group, it moves mountains, right? Like we just did this with my team. I've got, 35 people and we took them to a retreat outside of Nashville and we all went ziplining and did some archery and some axe throwing. And I don't think any of us have ever done that together before. And when we left those few hours and went back to the meeting room, there was a different buzz, right? It was just so much fun. And like everything that we're talking about none of this is rocket science. And I think that's where people get really caught up, right? Like none of this is rocket science and none of this is hard to do. It's just sitting down and thinking, all right, this is the agenda that I've ran this meeting by for the past decade. How can I make it 1% better? It's like atomic habits, right? Like how can I make it 1% better? How can I make sure that human connection is happening? Because you can move money around in a budget and fix it, right? It's just, you have to have the intention to do it. That I think is the difference. You have to have the intention to do it.
Well, that sounds like a wonderful one thing. Thank you, Falon, for joining us, for being a dynamic part of the Smart Meetings community, for all you do to be a role model for everyone else that's coming up and making this the brilliant industry that it is.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Smart Meetings, What One Thing was produced by Bright Business Media. Visit smartmeetings.com to subscribe to your daily dose of inspiration.